Alrighty then, Destiny, the Fall of Osiris. Let's check out those credits. Writer, Ryan North and Christine Thompson. Huh. Wait a second. I know that name.
Let's introduce our audience to yourselves. Christine, talk to us about what you do at Bungie and what was your contribution to this expansion.
I started as a writer at Bungie a couple years ago. I worked on live events, Rise of Iron, the Destiny 2 campaign. For Curse of Osiris, I am the narrative lead, which means I am coordinating all of the teams working on the story of Curse of Osiris. I work with the writers, our narrative designers, audio, cinematics, and work with Dave and Dan Miller, our design director, and put it all together and make the story.
Okay then, but who the fuck is Ryan North?
One debt to society later.
Well then, that would explain everything. Okay then. Let's get this shit show on the road, shall we? What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, Joker back again, once again. To say I'm a bit of a comic book fan would be an understatement. Comic books are what got me into art in the first place, and they're something I routinely still try to read between YouTube, work, family, something that has more recently got pushed to the wayside. This picture, for example, is my pulls from the last 2 months. I think I've read about 4 of them. I'm telling you this because I plan on reviewing The Fall of Osiris like I would any other comic book, and not just as a piece of Destiny media. And I feel like I should at least in some capacity show that I'm not some knuckle-dragging Luddite when it comes to understanding comic books. They're a media that I'm quite familiar with, and one that I've worked on, one that I've enjoyed for many, many years. So without further ado, Bungie, what the actual fuck is this? So first things first, before we get into the rant, one of the things that I cannot stress enough about The Fall of Osiris is that the artwork by Z. Carlos, apologies if I butchered that, is really, really superb, if not a little safe. Jumping ahead of myself a bit, there is a battle between Osiris and Saint 14 about halfway through the first issue, and it's just kind of stiff. 2 of the most powerful guardians in history meet on the field of battle and throw down, and what, you couldn't spring for a splash page? The entire book is basically a Talking Heads comic where characters just stand around dumping exposition at one another. Pretty much exactly like the game, which is a writer's issue, not an artist issue, to be clear. That said, talking heads are not that hard to draw. Take this from somebody who routinely draws talking heads. So, personally, I would have liked to see more of an epic scale and scope in the battle between Osiris and Saint 14. But again, credit where credit is due, I have a feeling that there was 1,000,001 reasons as to why the artist might have been limited in their ability to do anything outside the box. Because, as an artist myself, any chance I get to draw something epic in scale, I take it. And that's really the only criticism of the art I have. And then we get into the writing, because here's where things largely fall apart. Ryan North's bibliography doesn't have anything that stands out, so I had to go out and do a little research. Read some of his work. He's the creator of a webcomic called Dinosaur Comics, a very episodic gag comic that I didn't find to be particularly all that funny. 8-bit theater, this is not. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for giving new writers a shot. Some of the best work I've ever read started with me picking up a book and saying, Steven Sedja what? Sean Gordon Murphy who? Only to find out, not only are they both phenomenal artists, in the case of the 2 listed above authors, but rather decent writers as well. And honestly, at the end of the day, art is what sells the first issue of a comic book. But the story is what keeps people coming back. So, again, major props to artist Z. Carlos. Someone else who I've never heard of before, but we'll be looking into to check out their work. The other writer credited on this is Christine Thompson, also known as...
I started as a writer at Bungie a couple years ago. I worked on live events, Rise of Iron, the Destiny 2 campaign. For Curse of Osiris, I am the narrative lead.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, it all begins to fall into place. But, back to the story. See, knowing all of this is important because it sets up for the shit show we were about to talk about. At 10 pages, this is quite possibly one of the worst paced comic books I have ever read. This reads more like a previously on segment for a TV show than an actual story. One moment we're in Osiris's lab, the next he's walking down the street going do-a-diddy-diddy-dum-diddy-do with a pack of adoring fans.
Yes! Oh, great and mighty Grand Champion! Is there something you need? Can I carry your weapon? Shine your boots? Back rub, perhaps? Golly, you're the best! I'm going to follow you and watch you and worship the ground you walk on. Let's go.
The next, the fans are gone, and he's ripping posters off walls. The next, he's suddenly in a field talking to Saint 14. Then, because reasons, they start fighting, and Saint 14, in his only living appearance thus far, rips Saint 14, and then Saint 14 throws down with Osiris using a Fist of Havoc. Sure, that's a little bit of a nitpick, and Guardians can use whatever abilities they want, but this fight does nothing to add to the story in the first place. It does nothing to add anything interesting. It's just here because Titans apparently can't be reasonable or intellectual or philosophical. Nope, they just punch things. Then we move right along to a meeting with the Vanguard. The speaker shows up, gets bitchy that Osiris isn't there, then the speaker and Ikora have some words back and forth. Then we cut to Ikora talking to Sagira. Then we move to Osiris deciding that he's going to write a book. Then we move to that book not only being written, but published. And then the speaker stumbles upon them and demands that all the copies be gathered and burned because my heresy. I didn't realize I was reading a Warhammer 40k comic, and yet, somehow, someway, everybody still loves the speaker, including Ikora Rey, even though in her own story, she narrates about events that she would have no way of knowing about, showing the speaker to be an irrational religious zealot who fancies himself some sort of king. And people bitch about New Monarchy wanting to depose a tyrant? Psh, at least they're not burning books. The pacing of this book left me feeling as if days, weeks, months, even years passed with the turning of each page. And for a book that's billed as telling us about the fall of Osiris, dum dum dum, crackle lightning, crackle lightning, crackle, it does nothing more than present us with a bunch of disjointed and loosely connected character-driven episodic events where people talk but nothing's said. Sound familiar? Like, perhaps, maybe Destiny 2 and Destiny 2 The Curse of Osiris? Oh, don't get me wrong, Destiny 1 was no critical darling when it came to storytelling, but it did have the grimoire, and that was way more than we've gotten with Destiny 2 and its first multimedia endeavor. So far, The Fall of Osiris puts on display the very worst of Destiny's storytelling, only further exacerbated by the fact that there's no gameplay interspliced between story bits to make it more bearable. The pacing is atrocious, I cannot overstate that, and the dialogue is some of the worst in the Destiny franchise. No! We must fight them beyond forever! To forever and beyond! I mean, it's getting really sad when
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
Has become a fond memory of a better line uttered by a more memorable character. And the worst part of this comic is the fact that the story doesn't tell us anything. From page to page, there are more Osiris fanboys, but why? What's he saying? What's he teaching? Why are they so dedicated? Why does the speaker see this as a direct threat to his power? Why does he call it the prophecies heresy? What are the prophecies of Osiris even? Am I supposed to believe that this huge-ass book is the equivalent to flavor text on a weapon? If so, how is any of this objectionable? The Fall of Osiris does do one thing exceedingly well. It puts on display all of Destiny's biggest storytelling issues in a nice little 10-page comic of how not to write stories. I mean, really, this should be passed around as an example of what not to do. Why doesn't it explore any of the themes I listed off earlier? Why does it rush past anything of substance in lieu of pedantic at best attempts of making us care about characters? With small talk so mundane, it's hard to actually believe these are supposed to be some of the most powerful and intelligent people in the entire universe. Some of which are literal sentient computers. The answer to this question, of course, is simple. It's elegant, like the edge of a knife. Because Bungie doesn't know. All they know is that Osiris wrote some stuff that split the city down ideological lines, and he was exiled for it. Which is a death sentence to anyone who's not a Guardian. And even then, your odds are not ideal if the lore is anything to go by. So instead of presenting us with the very heretical arguments that justified a death sentence and asking us to contemplate the merits of them, they skipped right past them, telling us that they happened, but not going any further than necessary to tell us what they were, because Bungie doesn't know them. And why don't they know them? Because they took the years of hard work created by the guy that did and threw it out the fucking window. So he left. That's almost ironic. But like always, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and like always, stay frosty.